Caregivers, The Hidden Patients by Deb Ellsworth, Elizabethtown College. Most Americans are unaware of the significant economic impact that unpaid family caregivers provide in this country. It is estimated that family caregivers provide approximately $350 billion in uncompensated care annually. This figure is equal to about half of the annual Medicare budget. So in providing care for their loved ones, family caregivers are saving 50% additional of that budget for the United States. 65% of the elderly or those with disabilities in this country receive their care from family members, whether it be partial care or full-time care. And women represent around 66% of that figure. The average female caregiver is still employed and is trying to take care of a family of their own while caring for their loved ones. This group of people is known as the sandwich generation because not only are they raising their families, they're also providing care for their parents as well. The reason I chose this topic to focus on for my healthcare policy is because I myself have been in that situation over the last few years while I was caring for my mother as she developed dementia. Like many healthcare conditions, women tend to suffer different side effects and more excessive side effects than men from the process of caregiving. Women tend to take on more of the role of a physical caregiver for the affected person, where males tend to take on the roles that are more hands-off, such as financial management, medication management, and appointment management. Women are also more likely to devote more hours to caregiving per week than males, and less likely to ask for assistance when needed in caring for the individual that they're providing care for. Some side effects of caregiving that can lead to caregiver burnout include stress, anxiety, and depression, all of which come from the individual becoming so encompassed in caring for their loved one that they start to neglect their own needs and not take care of themselves. Unfortunately, these side effects also come along with guilt. Caregivers are often left feeling great amounts of guilt for developing a resentment towards their role as a caregiver, even though they're doing everything for the right reasons. Sometimes they can become overburdened and overwhelmed with the duties that come along with taking care of another individual full time. Caregivers are also more likely to avoid taking themselves to the doctor, where they'll make sure that the person they're caring for gets to all of their appointments and treatments. They tend to neglect their own health. Females in particular are at higher risk for health side effects such as high blood pressure and elevated blood glucose, often conditions that are not caught because of the lower use of preventative services by the females. Additionally, females are more likely to reduce their role in the workplace and cut back their hours in order to continue to provide care for their loved one, which can add to greater stress and financial difficulties for the caregiver. This leads me to my idea for healthcare policy. There are a lot of services that are already in existence to assist caregivers and the families that are trying to take care of people who would like to stay at home as opposed to going to a nursing home. However, there's really not a coordination of care for female caregivers. So my suggestion for healthcare policy, and I'm imagining this is being within a health system, not necessarily mandatory through a state or federal government. I think it would be more difficult to manage at that level, to actually make the primary care physician's office of the patient responsible for coordination of care for the caregivers. In saying that, my intention is not that the person they're caring for's physician or provider will take over as physician for the caregiver, but rather be a gateway to services for that caregiver. For example, there are several screenings that are available to assess caregivers for stress and burnout and signs of other physical conditions. I feel that it should be a service that's automatically offered to caregivers once they're identified as a caregiver and they bring a patient into the office. There should be a caregiver visit maybe that's tacked on to the appointment to ensure that the caregiver is identified as needing services if they do. Once the caregiver is identified as someone who may benefit from some type of services, the physician of the person being cared for can offer to either forward that information to the personal physician of the caregiver, if they're not already that caregiver's physician as well, and hopefully get the caregiver into care with their primary care provider, who can assist them with any medications or treatments they may need in relation to the physical symptoms they're suffering from providing care. Additionally, if a physician's office has a patient that is being cared for primarily by a family member or a friend or a spouse, a female, they can, at the end of the visit, provide information, perhaps take some of the services that they know are available locally, support groups, the Office of the Aging, which can actually provide funding for the caregivers for the care they provide, as well as services for modifications to the person receiving care's home to make it easier for them to get around and safer, which can relieve some burdens for the caregiver, as well as funding that could be available for reaching out and getting assistance from home health aides or utilizing adult daycare services. So the physician's office would then have a direct responsibility to take all known resources and combine them and provide them to the caregiver so that the caregiver has a starting place to go. Because the majority of the time, caregivers are so immersed in caring for their loved one that they don't have time to research what options are available or who can help them, is there help available, where can they go to get some type of respite, relief, or stress reduction from their role as a caregiver. There's many options out there, they just don't know about them and don't think to look for them or don't have time to look for them. So making that primary care office of the patient a hub of information and referral services for the caregiver would greatly assist both the caregiver in reducing some of their burdens and responsibilities, as well as assisting the patient, because often caregivers can become burnout, stressed out, and that affects the level of care that they're able to provide for the person that they're caring for. That is my healthcare policy idea, is to make sure that caregivers are receiving the care that they need in order to provide the best possible care for their loved ones. Thank you.